Hey everybody, going to welcome you into another edition of the Roy's Boys podcast. Josh Marlowe, your host as always, joined by my co-host as always, Anthony. Buddy, how's it going?
Well, it's been a little over 12 hours since we did a podcast, and we're right back at it again. But it's pretty good, man. I can't argue with it. An exciting day overall with the college football playoff, but we got a little bit of an appetizer, it's Carolina basketball, so that's always nice to have. And, a good game, and we'll get ready to break this thing down.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if you know, but like in an hour and 24 minutes, there's like some ball game in Jerry World that's going to be taking place between Clemson and Notre Dame. And in case you forgot, because ESPN's only told us 2,000 times since like Christmas Day that there's playoff games. But yeah, we got that later tonight. Always a great day because we're both college football guys. So like you said, Carolina did play basketball for the first time in a week. This month of December has been long because it's like we play and then we have to wait.
Yep.
We play and then we have to wait. Luckily, we're back into where they're going to play about twice, at least 2 times a week for the rest of the season. So they started today with Davidson, an 82-60 win, and it was the kind of game that I thought we would have all along. I told you last night, look, you find a way to get this game into the 80s, Carolina's going to win the game because Davidson doesn't want to play that kind of style. They were without their top scorer, Kellen Grady, not able to go today with I think he has a knee injury.
Yes,
that's held him out.
Mm-hmm.
And I apologize if we didn't make it clear in the preview if he was going to be able to play, because the way I was reading into it was he was going to be able to go. I guess today he tested it out, wasn't able to go. But overall, just a solid win for Carolina. Nothing spectacular, but at the end of the day, they got a W.
Yeah, no, I think you're right about that. Not the start that we would have hoped for, turning the ball over 4 times before the under 16 timeout, excuse me. But really from there, I thought they locked in, did a pretty good job of keeping possession of the ball. Of course, they still had some more frustrating turnovers, and I thought 14 overall for the game. Again, still not great. I feel like we still want to get that number a lot lower. We'd like to see it somewhere around 10, maybe even in the single digits here in a few games as we get ready to go into conference play. But ultimately, I mean, I thought they did a lot better job taking care of the basketball. And really, in the second half, I thought they sort of put their foot on the gas and didn't take it off. There was a moment where Davidson cut it to 15, and the thing that I liked, immediate response to get it back up to 20 plus. And that's kind of what you need to see from this team, especially in games like this where they're the more talented team. And there's going to be games in the ACC where they're not going to have quite the matchup advantage that they did today, but they are going to be the better team on the basketball court. And you want to see them be able to do things like that once they get into conference play.
Yeah, in the first half, they were trailing at the under 8. It was I think it's like a 24-19 deficit or something like that. Mm-hmm. They finished the half on a 20-4 run to get a double-digit lead. And after that, Davidson really never threatened. I'm with you. I thought in the second half they were more aggressive, more assertive. Cam Johnson was taking the ball to the rim because he was getting by his defender. Luke May was, got up to 11 points in the second half. So just another one of these games where I'm not going to say you had to grind it out because you won by 20 plus, but you just do the things that you can do, and you're going to win. I thought defensively, the numbers-wise, their best game to date, they held Davidson to 29% shooting, which is the best we've held an opponent all year long. And I just thought, and Roy Williams mentioned in the postgame, they were more, I guess, aware, closing out on shots. And that's a big part of basketball. If you put that hand up, it's going to affect the shot in more ways than you think it's going to. Mm-hmm. I like seeing that. And then on the boards, they just beat up Davidson 49-33.
Yeah, no, I mean, that's kind of what you were hoping that they would do. A team that in Carolina right now still boasts a lot more size than Davidson, even though we're not the biggest team that we've been in Carolina history, not even close really. But yeah, no, I thought they did a fantastic job. One of the other areas that I look at when you look at the overall stats from the game, I mean, personal fouls, we only had 12 fouls the whole game. Very smart basketball from these guys, and that was something that we really needed to focus on. mean, Nazir Little got in some foul trouble early. I think Garrison Brooks did as well. But really after that, they settled themselves down and were really able to work through it. And that's one of the big things. To be really honest with you, I don't even know if Garrison had another foul the rest of the way, which is, kind of what you want to see from him. I mean, when you get in those types of situations, you got to know how to play smart on the floor. I think at times this year they haven't been able to do that. When they've come back in, I mean, they picked up a third foul pretty quickly. That didn't happen today, and that's exactly what you want to see. I thought overall, we kind of reacted pretty well from about that, I would say that 7-minute mark of the first half on was kind of where we started to pick it back up. Once we got the lead at about, I think it was 25-24, we never looked back. And that's exactly what you want to see. Once they got themselves into sort of a rhythm offensively, guy, like Cam Johnson finally gets going. And that's, I think, to me, that was the biggest thing offensively for him. Once Cam Johnson got going, you could see your senior leader, your leading scorer, starting to feel it just a little bit, because early in the game, he didn't shoot as much as maybe you would have liked. And at the same time, when he was shooting, he wasn't able to connect on the shots. So I thought they did a good job, though, of recovering late in that first half, took the 11-point lead into halftime, and then in the second half, I thought that was kind of the performance that we were hoping to see from them there. But overall, I mean, to me, I don't know about you, this might be the most complete defensive performance that we've seen this season. I thought they really did a pretty good job defensively. I know that Davidson's going to settle for a lot of outside shots because they're a smaller team. But at the same time, I thought really, I mean, there were a couple of times where there were guys left open. Most of the time, that was because they were trying to trap across half court, or there were a couple of times that they doubled and left guys open. But really, I thought for the most part, they did a pretty good job defensively. I mean, was that how you felt?
Yeah, I would say, with this being the opponent, they look better against, let's say St. Francis, Tennessee Tech,
Right.
or whatever. But of the mid-majors, I'd say this has been their best performance of the year. The thing with Davidson, yeah, they shoot a lot of threes, but they're so good at spacing the floor and crossing the ball from one side of the court to the other because they space and screen so well. I thought, Carolina did a good job fighting through those screens and rotating for the most part. And they were 10 of 38 from three. So Davidson got their average. They averaged about 10 threes made a game. But if it took you 38 tries to get 10 makes, I'll live with that any night of the week because, that's a good number. It falls down to 26%. So that was a big concern going into the game because three-point defense for this program for the last how many so years has failed them at many times. And a game like this, if Davidson was to get hot, would kind of have you on the edge of your seat. Luckily, we didn't have that issue. So I would agree that this was their best performance of the year. Roy Williams didn't have to go zone. So obviously he was pretty pleased with how they were guarding the ball, staying in front of the ball. So in that regard, yeah, they forced 13 turnovers.
Mm-hmm.
That's a number that you want to get up, but you got to start somewhere. And they've made Davidson commit 18 fouls, so we were more aggressive than Davidson was. That's a big thing. I harped on this team because in the first half, Davidson was in the bonus before Carolina. I'm not trying to be mean. That should just never happen. To me, that shows Carolina's not in attack mode the way they need to be. Second half, that wasn't the issue. Like you said, we didn't foul as much and got them into more fouling situations. I thought a big lift today was Nazir Little probably had his best game he's played in about a month.
Right.
10 points,
Right.
4 or 5 shooting. His only miss was a 3, which was a bad shot anyway. Gave you some stuff rebounding, and then I raved when we were watching the game together with the assist when he drove the ball, drew 2 defenders, and kicked out to Cam Johnson. That's the kind of stuff where hopefully he's starting to grow as a player, and he's not trying to force something, and hopefully we see more of his development over the weeks.
Yeah, I think he started to realize that, look, this isn't like high school. I'm not the only guy out there that has the ability to make shots, and I think that's really helping him. That was what he did today to me. You saw that was one of my favorite plays of the day was his ability to kick that out to Cam Johnson after a drive, and that's a play that some freshmen just simply don't make. And I like that from him. I also thought Kobe White had a pretty solid game because his shot wasn't falling, but he wasn't a guy that panicked and just kept jacking up shots like we've seen from guys in past years. Instead, we kind of saw a guy that said, okay, my shot's not falling. I need to get on the glass, which he did, 7 rebounds, and I need to spread the ball around, which he did, 7 assists. So overall, that's a guy that, I like his ability to adjust his game to what is going on the court. Some guys think the solution, if you're struggling shooting the ball, is to keep shooting and shoot yourself out of it. I think Kobe White realized, okay, that's not what I need to be doing here. Luke May is having a pretty good game right now. Cam Johnson, we know, can shoot the basketball, and when he gets hot, he's going to be able to put up points quickly. And Kenny Williams, early on in the game, was shooting the ball well. Again, he faded a little bit towards the end of the game and in the second half. But still, I think overall, Kenny Williams was still having a good enough day to where it made sense. And that's what I like from Kobe White right there. Something that earlier in the season we didn't really see from him. He was a guy that was aggressive himself. And instead of trying to look for a pass when he was running the floor, he had one goal in mind, which was to get to the basket and finish, which would result in some block shots and stuff like that. Today, totally different. Able to look and see able to see the floor a lot better, able to kick it out a lot easier. And so, yeah, I got to hand it to him. That was a great job from Kobe White. I think all around, it's going to be pretty hard to find a guy for Carolina today that did not have a good game. I think maybe Garrison Brooks would be the only. He had one of his worst games of the season, and it really wasn't all that bad of a performance from him. I just don't think he was quite as effective as we've seen him at other times this year, especially on the glass.
Yeah, I'll piggyback on Kobe White. He flirted with almost a triple-double with a 7-7-7 line. So
right.
It's always good to see your point guard when he's a scoring guard, when the shot isn't there, being able to impact the game in other areas, especially when he's a freshman and he's learning, okay, yeah, I can get to the rebounds, and I can, he's starting to show that even though he's a good shooter, he also has good vision and can make some pretty good passes to get other guys their shots. I'm with you. In a game like today, it's hard to really find one guy and then let's pick on him for not being good. Garrison wasn't great, but he still gave you some points. We'd like to see him have more rebounds, but Luke May and Cam Johnson had 21 combined, and then your point guard had 7. So it's hard to as long as someone's getting the rebounds, I don't care who it is. Right. So yeah. Is there anything else we want to touch on from the Davidson win before we transition into the Harvard preview?
Got to shout out Brandon Robinson for a good game. How about that? Hits 2 threes, also gets the free throw line 1 time, so 7 points for him. Pretty solid game off the bench for him. I mean, probably not going to see a ton of action once we get into conference play, so that's good to see from him against an opponent like Davidson, him able to at least get himself on the score sheet and hit a couple of shots that, who knows, maybe if he is out there, maybe that helps him with a little bit of his shooting troubles that he's had in his time at Carolina.
Yeah, that is something we'll need to keep an eye on once conference play starts in a week. The bench will get shorter because that's just the nature of the way the season goes.
Yep.
B-Rob, I think he's done enough to keep himself in as a guy that's going to get 6 to 8 minutes. And hopefully he keeps on doing some good things. We're going to go now to Wednesday's game where we'll be taking on Harvard, our final non-conference game of the season.
Yep.
Our first game of 2019 with New Year's Day being on Tuesday. And this Harvard team isn't as good as they've been in years past. They come in, they got a 5-5 record right now. And I don't know if they play again before they come to Chapel Hill or not, but obviously this is a game that Carolina should win and should win very easily.
Yeah, no, I agree with you there. They're actually playing right now, playing against Mercer as we speak. I think, a team that's 5-5, they were supposed to be a lot better in most people's minds. This was a team that was supposed to return to the tournament in most people's minds, and still could, because we all know that's how these tournaments work. And the fact that they are now in the Ivy League, and the Ivy League now does have a tournament, it always gives them a chance. But I mean, just looking at today, I mean, their leading scorer today is, I'm trying to see if we got a first name on him here really quickly. But, I mean, they're leading Mercer today, but Mercer, not a great basketball team. Again, 5-5, that should pretty much tell you they're really not all that great. Noah Kirkwood is the guy that's leading them in scoring today. But, I mean, when you look at this team, you know, Carolina should outmatch them pretty easily. I think, again, size-wise, Carolina probably outmatches them. You know that with most of your mid-major teams that they're going to have their struggles. But, you know, I still, you know, it's a game. I think this one might be a little bit different. I think they might have a quicker start because, like you've said, this month of December has just been really weird where they have – I mean, they played a game, took a week off. Played a game, took a week off. I mean, the last 3 games, they've had a week off in between their next game. You know, this one will be a little bit different. So it'll be interesting to see, you know, how they're able to maybe carry over a little momentum. Granted, I don't know how much momentum you can actually take from a game against a team in Davidson that's good but not quite great amongst the mid-majors. But, I mean, you know, I'm looking at their stats right now. They got 3 guys that score over 10 points a game, and that's it. They've really – they don't have anybody that really jumps off the paper either. Chris Lewis is their best player, averages 13.4 points a game, but he's only played in 7 games, so there's been an injury somewhere. I don't know if he's currently – I don't believe he was actually playing today at the stat sheet that I looked at. So, you know, with him not being there, that's your top scorer off the floor. That's one of the things, you know, when we look at some of these mid-majors, we were talking about it just a little while ago during halftime, right before we came back. You know, when you look at these mid-major teams, the ones that are really successful have a guy that's really dominant. Harvard doesn't really have that guy. And so I feel like if you're Carolina, you've got to think, okay, we've got a real shot in this game to come out and really take it to this team that, I mean, let's be real honest, they're not the worst team that we faced this year. That is easily Tennessee Tech, and there's no denying that. But this will be a team that will be near the bottom of the group of teams that we face so far. So, yeah, no, I think this is a good chance to continue building just a little more momentum, little more momentum. That's what I'm looking for. Going into conference play, and, yeah, no, I don't see any reason why we shouldn't be in the lead comfortably in the second half. That's how I'll put it.
Yeah, a game like this, what I'm looking at is, you know, first they'll play in 4 days. And, you know, basketball is not like football where, you know, you play and that week off you don't really hurt yourself. Basketball is all about rhythm and everything like that. So that's what I'm looking to see. Can we come out and find some rhythm early in the game, build off what we kind of had working in the second half, and do the things that you got to do against a mid-major. Beat them up inside, force them into bad shots, force them into turnovers. This Harvard team is nowhere near as good as the team that we played in the tournament, well, 4 years ago when they gave us a scare in the first round.
Oh, my gosh. It's been 4 years since that game already? Oh, my Lord.
Which shows you the level that Harvard was at just not that long ago, that Tommy Amaker had that program as one of the best mid-majors, and that teams that once they got in the tournament, if they had them in their pool, nobody wanted a part of. They're going to want to slow it down, kind of like Davidson, because they don't have the athletes and the talent to play a high possession game. So it'll be imperative that Carolina values the ball, takes good shots, and pound the ball inside. Hopefully Garrison doesn't have early foul trouble, and you can kind of work on his offense a little bit more because he's starting to prove that, you know, he has a decent jumper and he has somewhat of a back-to-the-basket game. It's just a matter of can he stay on the floor long enough to see this come to fruition. So I'm with you. I think this game should be over earlier than today's game against Davidson will be. I think the big guy coming out of this game, I'm actually going to go, I think Nazir Little's going to build off of his performance today. Finally has some confidence in himself because he's starting to do some things good on the court. And maybe today was the turning of the page and him becoming a big part of this team that we're going to need him to be very good for us to have a chance to win the ACC regular season title.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. I think anybody that knows anything about Carolina basketball should agree with that. You got to have a guy that, no matter if he's coming off the bench or starting, is effective and can score points like he has at times this season. The guy that I think will have a big game in this one, I think probably, it's not bold at all. I think Cam Johnson just continues to have a great stretch here, and I think he builds on that again. I could see this getting into a game where he scores about 24, 25 points, which is, a pretty good performance from him, considering that Carolina spreads the scoring around a lot this season. I mean, you look at the box scores, there's a lot of guys that are in the double digits in points. That's what Carolina does better this year than I feel like they've done in the past at times offensively. They allow the scoring to be spread around. So, yeah, no, I think, overall, I think we have a chance to have a really good game. It helps that the game is in the Smith Center as well. Another game at home. You never really want to pass those games up. But, yeah, I think, it'll be a comfortable win. I would say probably somewhere around today. I think somewhere in that 20 to 25 point margin. And we come away with a win. So, yeah, no, that's my official prediction. I'm assuming you're somewhere in that same range.
Yeah, I mean, here's my thing. You're playing a mid-major, get the game to 80.
Right.
You get the game into the 80s the way we want to play. Carolina's going to win the game because these teams aren't built to score with us. So that's going to be my threshold for a lot of games the rest of the way, even in ACC play when we play the lesser teams of the conference. Get the game to the 80s. Chances are Carolina's going to win, because that's just how we want to play, and most teams aren't built to play with us. So we're going to now move into our discussion topic. This will be a little interesting. It kind of popped up during today's broadcast, and they were talking about changes to the college game you would like to see made. I know a lot of people want to go to the quarters because the women's game has gone to quarters, and some other things. So if there's a couple things you could fix about the college game, what would it be?
The quarters thing, I'm not on board with that. The shot clock, I'm glad they've dropped it. And I think I don't have a problem with the 30-second shot clock. That's to me is pretty solid. But we were talking about this a little bit earlier. I think the reset after missed shots, if you get an offensive rebound, I think there should be a shorter clock for that. I do agree with that. I think, they do it in the NBA. What's the time reset to in the NBA? 14. That's right. That's what I thought. So, yeah, no, I wouldn't mind seeing it maybe, I don't know about 14, maybe a little bit longer than that. But, I think that would definitely help the pace of the game a little bit. I can't really complain a ton about the pace of the game because I think it has picked up over the last couple of years as opposed to a few years ago where we were kind of watching these games every weekend in the Big Ten that were in the 30s and 40s. I can't really argue that. I'm trying to think of anything else that really jumps off of the page. I know they're going with the new scheduling for the ACC, where they're going to have the early ACC games to start out the year. Personally, not a huge fan of that. I think they should just leave it the way that it is. I like the way that it is now. Or if you're going to do that, maybe do like the Big Ten does, closer, maybe in the middle of non-conference play, not to start out the year. That to me just doesn't really make a whole lot of sense from a money standpoint because it is during football season. People are still locked in to the football mindset. And, also I think from a competitive standpoint, in the ACC, the best thing about the ACC conference is that everybody, you have to show up every night because everybody is coming to give you their best. I think early in the season, guys are still trying to work things out, especially the first game or two of the season. You're still trying to learn a lot about your team. When you're throwing these conference games in there early in the season, I don't know how much of an effect it'll have for a team like us, but let's say if you're a team like Virginia Tech or you're a team like Notre Dame, a team that's in the middle of the conference. Virginia Tech, of course, is better this year, but let's say, in most of the normal years for them, that could be the difference between you being a 6 seed and a 10 seed in the ACC tournament, because you played a game or two in the first week of the season that ended up affecting your team because you didn't have everybody quite ready to go. You didn't have your team playing at the level that it normally is playing during ACC play. That's one of the things that I don't really like. I'm really hoping that the ACC is smart about the matchups that they're putting in that first week of the year. I swear to Christ, if they put Carolina and Duke in the first week of the season, I might have an aneurysm. I'm not lying. So they've got to be smart about the matchups that they put in there. But that's the thing. You wonder if one time they don't try to experiment with that to try to get college basketball off to a running start. And that's what worries me. So that's one of the things that I would change back about college basketball. What are some of the changes that maybe come to mind for you?
I have a couple. I, for one, would like to see the shot clock lessened to 25. That's because I like to see the game played at a faster pace. And if they were to drop the shot clock to 25, I would be okay with you keeping the offensive rebound shot clock at 25. If we're keeping it at 30, I wouldn't mind you seeing it, dropping it to 20, have these guys get into some action better, just because teams like, Virginia and Notre Dame, these teams that just want to bleed the clock, as a fan, that's not exciting to me to watch.
Right.
But also for my teams that wants to run and play fast, it's going to help my team, and we'll win a lot more games that way. That's one of them. I think the bonus and the double bonus thing, I think they need to maybe do away with the 1-and-1 and just let's pick a foul limit and say, well, at 7 or 10, you're getting 2 shots. Probably just go ahead and do it at 7. But I know it's interesting.
Yeah, I was gonna say, you don't like the suspense that comes from it?
No, not when my team doesn't shoot foul shots very well.
From the other standpoint, because that's how you got to think about these rule changes.
Yeah,
how does it affect both sides?
I just think go ahead and just go ahead and give them 2 shots. And there's one I've always thought about, and I know it's Dick Vitale's mentioned it. I think in the tournament, the foul should go to 6 fouls for a player, because you want your best players on the floor for as much time as possible. And also because, like the NFL and like some of these other professional leagues, these refereeing crews don't work together during the season. You're with a whole new crew. So one official is going to call something differently than another crew is going to call something. Whether it's a reach in, a block charge, whatever. And a lot of times, I know foul trouble is a part of the game, but when these kids are having to adjust to brand new crews that never work together, they don't know their tendencies as an official. It changes the game. So I'd be for giving them an extra foul during the tournament, just so you're having your premier players, on the court longer. Because like CBS isn't going to want Zion Williamson on the bench for the whole first half because he got 2 cheap fouls that. In the ACC wouldn't be called. So I know that's very unpopular because you're changing the rules when you're trying to determine a champion. But I think it could help the product and make it a little bit more interesting. And I think that's about everything that I have that comes to mind. I know people think the 3-point line should be backed up because 3-point shooters are getting better. That might happen, but if you're going to do that, you're going to have to widen the lane, kind of like how the international lane is a little bit wider. And I think eventually the college game will get to that. Is there anything else you want to add to this discussion?
No, the only thing that I would say about the foul discussion, moving it up to 6 in the tournament, I'm not a huge proponent of that, mainly just because, I'm going to be really honest with you. If you get into foul trouble, you've got to be more disciplined. I understand that different refs are going to call things different ways, and my thing is, do you really want to see Zion Williamson on the bench? Look, the reason I don't think they'll ever make that move is because that's that's a way that you can even up the game. Teams shouldn't be penalized for putting Zion Williamson in foul trouble. If you're able to get him into foul trouble, that's just good game planning by you, and that's a good game. that's somebody that's playing a good game against them. So I'm not quite on that same level with you with that, but there is an argument there, and I think every other argument is very fair. It's definitely something interesting to talk through, and there's always that's the best part of sports. There are always going to be these conversations of rule change. I mean, we've seen it year in and year out with the NFL, with the catch rule and everything like that. The NBA, I feel like I don't know if there's been quite as many rule arguments with the NBA. I still feel, college basketball, though, the biggest thing was always the shot clock. They dropped it down. And so now, I think it brings up some of these other conversation points, but they're definitely interesting ones to talk about.
Okay, well, we finally found something that we disagree on. So, that's a
that first. Is true, yeah.
A lot of times we agree on many of things. We're going to wind down this podcast. I want to encourage you guys to check out my blog, The Roy's Boys. I'll have the recap of today's game up today, and then I'll have the preview out for Harvard sometime either Tuesday or early Wednesday morning next week. Encourage you guys to subscribe to this podcast through Spreaker, Spotify, iTunes, all those various sites. I want to thank you guys for listening. Go Tar Heels.
And we'll see you next year.